Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that is very close to my heart. It's been very present in my life, and it's that sense of not enoughness that is so prevalent in our society, in our world. And this video is, for me, a bit of an exercise to meet and to confront my own sense of not enoughness. Because as I was writing content for this video, I realized that I do this to myself as I created. So writing about it, but then at the same time feeling that part of me really come to the surface recently, that says that the content, what I have to say, what I have to share is not good enough, that there is something else out there that has already been said, probably way more eloquently, way more in a more wise way or clear way, and what I have to say is simply not good enough. So I have nothing prepared today. I will just free flow, and I guess I will see what just arises. I want to speak to this experience from my own perspective of how I have been meeting with that part of me, with that working with my self-worth, or finding it or reclaiming it. I think that's a better word, reclaiming my self-worth, because we are worthy inherently. We are born worthy, and we know it when we come into this world. We know what qualities we are bringing, that they are the exact qualities that this world is needing, is seeking, is yearning for. There's no doubt for us when we are small children or when we come into this planet that the way we are, just the way we are, without changing it, without bettering ourselves, we already are exactly what the world needs. And now we unapologetically display our qualities, display the exact qualities that we came here to manifest. Okay, so maybe being born into a family, for example, I was born into a family with a lot of suppression. So a lot of emotional suppression, repression, a lot of shame in my household, in my family. And I came into this world with being really vocal, outspoken, speaking the truth, seeing what's happening in my family, identifying toxic behaviors or dysfunctional behaviors, without, of course, realizing that they were all naming that exactly, but seeing that something didn't feel right. And I was able to very deeply sense false sort of manipulation or or blackmail or something that was kind of underneath the carpet that nobody was talking about. But I had this radar. I always knew that there was something underneath, that there was some sort of truth underneath that for some reason was being repressed or suppressed. And I came in with my self-expression. I was very naturally expressive, very connected to my senses. Yeah, and I came into this world with those qualities to wake something up in other people. So in this case, I believe that I arrived in my family, and the qualities I had the potential for my family members to be able to transform or heal a lot of the traumas that happened in my generations. So, but unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we are physically completely reliant on our caretakers, on our caregivers when we are young. So when our natural qualities are being rejected by those caretakers because they don't have the capacity to take that quality or pull that when they're triggered, they don't have the capacity to pull that opportunity out of that moment in order to heal. And of course, they didn't have the tools. They didn't have the tools. They didn't have the means. They didn't have the awareness or the readiness, because our last generation, I'm from Poland, so generally in Poland, in my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, physical survival was still at the forefront. So there wasn't as much space being made for emotional healing, emotional hygiene. So yes, my parents were still stuck, very much stuck in this kind of focus on around physical survival. So yeah, they didn't have the means to be able to pause and see the opportunities that were coming when they were being confronted with my behavior. So when I was being outspoken, or I was being loud, or loud in a way that I was expressing myself or singing around the house, their own suppressed emotions were being awakened. Okay, so if they weren't allowed to sing loudly around the house, they didn't have the acceptance for that part of them. So when they would see it in somebody else, they would want to suppress it, because confronting it was too difficult or too overwhelming at the time without the tools to be able to transform it and heal it. So when they see or hear another human displaying freedom, self-expression, frivolity, spontaneity, joy, that was really difficult for them, because that would mean that what the mind does for us is dissociates us from that quality in us, okay? And the feeling that arises when we are confronted with something that we are suppressing in ourselves, awakens that trauma, awakens that belief, because those two live in the body, really. So oftentimes, reading about someone singing or like intellectually approaching that subject isn't going to necessarily have the same effect as when the feeling is evoked, because that brings the focus into the body. And that's where those feelings around the suppression, so possibly anger, possibly sadness, possibly grief, maybe loneliness, maybe frustration, disappointment, sense of injustice, those feelings might arise at the same time, because we are touching a place where we have hidden a part of us, and that possibly was too difficult for the parents. So when we are young and we fully rely on our caretakers, on our parents, and those caretakers reject or punish us for a part of us that we are displaying naturally, it is actually too difficult for us to believe that our parents can be the oppressors, they can be the ones that are in the wrong. So we start to believe that we are the ones, that there's something wrong with us, because it is easier, and actually it is safer for us to believe that there is something wrong with us, okay, on an emotional level, or on a the price is basically our self-expression, the price is our spontaneity, the price can be our frivolity, or loud laughter, singing, dancing, okay? That's the price for surviving, for physical survival. And for the body, it's always the most important thing is to survive, physically survive on this earth. So we will choose to believe that our parents, our caretakers, they are right. So they are silencing a part of us, and they are right. So there's something wrong with us, and we shouldn't show it. We should be silencing it. Because if we don't, we're going to get rejected and abandoned, possibly left behind. And from a primal kind of perspective, this threatens our survival. So we will always choose to believe that that part of us, that quality within us, is just wrong, is not allowed, is hurting other people, is making other people angry, is making other people sad, okay? And we often also assume responsibility for other people, but that's a whole different subject. But yes, so this is the trajectory of our lives. We come into this world fully unashamed of who we are, bringing this gift, this essence, exactly what this world is needing from us, exactly what we are here to manifest. We are this, we inhabit our inner world, our inner castle. And in that castle, there's all the treasure in the world, okay? We have everything we need. And when we have to suppress a part of ourselves, it can be such a painful process. Our mind can start to disassociate, okay, from those feelings, from those sensations. So in a way, we become emotionally homeless because a part of us is no longer ours. So if we live in this house and we inhabit this castle, okay, and one room, somebody else moves in, or one room gets rented out, then the other room gets rented out, the other one, and slowly we basically leave that castle, leave that house, that beautiful house, that inner home. We start to wander the neighborhoods, okay? We start to wander. We become homeless. We are away from our inner home. We are lost. And we just wander those neighborhoods, feeling lost, feeling really powerless, feeling hopeless, feeling poor, feeling weak. Because suddenly we have lost the safety that house provided for us. And we start to, as the life goes on, we start to try to inhabit other people's houses, other people's inner worlds. We start to go into other people's homes, okay, those inner homes, and we try to adapt to it, make it our own, but it's never quite right. It's never quite right because it's not our own home, but we still have the key. We just don't realize it. Oftentimes we even forget that there was a home in the first place when the disassociation happens really early on in our life, when we lose touch with who we are really early on, because we have to start to suppress our natural qualities because it's threatening very early on. And usually that happens, having to disassociate can happen around 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe 4 years old, when we start to develop our sense of sovereignty. We start to develop our own identity. We start to speak up for ourselves. We have a phase when we start to say no and exercise our anger, healthy anger, that helps us to set boundaries and to show to the world where we end and where other people begin. So we protect our space, we protect ourselves, and that's also, or that's usually received in not the most healthy way, basically, by our caretakers. Often it will be difficult and challenging and hurtful for the parents to have a child who is exercising their boundaries, especially if the parents haven't confronted their own traumas. They haven't integrated their experiencing from childhood, and they're not aware of the suppressed emotions that they are carrying inside. So coming back to not enoughness, because I got a bit lost, but we are still on the same topic. So us becoming kind of homeless, like the inner world, from the inner world perspective, we kind of become homeless, and we don't feel like we're good enough because we have those qualities that are aligned with who we are, with our core. And pretending or molding ourselves to what other people are expecting of us is like a friend of mine said the other day, that it's almost like we are this light. We are light. And that light, at one point in our life, has to fit into a mold, into this cake mold, for example. And light isn't one shape forever. Light is moving, light is free, is kind of omnipresent, is everywhere, and is flowing and moving constantly and rearranging and reorganizing constantly. And suddenly in our life, that all of that light has to mold into this shape, this mold. And that can be heartbreaking, because what's good enough is locked in that castle. What's good enough is locked in that home, that inner home. What's good enough is what we came here with. So the good news is that we already have it in us. It could be silenced, it could have been suppressed, it could have been forgotten, but it's there, and it's always been there. What we have inside is more than what we have to say. Is our energy, is that core energy, that potent, unique, colorful light energy. Our essence, our core, our true nature. Okay, that's what's good enough, and that's there. And the bad news is that we have forgotten about it, and maybe there are moments we are reminded of it, but we are afraid because we have gone through our entire life locking emotions away in that house. So now opening that up, reopening it, feels or might feel overwhelming, might feel like a lot, might feel like it's dangerous. And for sure, if we were to just walk in and suddenly be flooded by all of those suppressed emotions that we have locked in there, it could be dangerous to our system, and we could potentially overwhelm our system. So our mind is keeping us safe still, is keeping us disassociated from all of that. Unfortunately, under a pile of difficult, big emotions that we have locked there, there is our potential there as well. But we have to clean up. We have to clear that house of all those beliefs, of all those emotions that we have left there, of all those feelings that we didn't have the capacity to experience at the time because there was no space. There was no empathetic witness to hold us. And the emotions were often too big for our small body. When we were a child, we didn't have resources, or maybe we weren't aware of the resources. Maybe our resource was or were the caretakers, but they weren't there. So we had to lock it away. And now another good news is that we are no longer hopeless, powerless children, because our survival doesn't depend on another adult anymore. Even though it might feel like, because we are still stuck to some extent at the level of a child, because we haven't moved past it. What trauma does to our system is that it kind of frame freezes. Anyway, freezes the frame on certain situations that were really, really difficult. And it almost creates like an echo or some sort of blueprint of ourselves from that moment into our energetic field. And we carry that still because that situation is still unresolved for us. And it will remain unresolved until we see it, until we go back and we introduce healing into those spaces, into those moments, so we can reclaim that. And talking about not enoughness and how just widely spread it is in our society, how many people feel that they are not good enough, that what they have to say is not good enough, that what they look like is not good enough, because we have been taught to look on the outside. Our whole society has catered for us to remain homeless from our inner world. Our whole society, we have never had that many resources or means to not have to confront or to distract us from our inner world and to what we have left there. We have games, social media, Netflix, food, gambling, work. We are rewarded for not looking inwards, because as long as we look outwards on the outside for our sense of good enoughness, as long as we look for our sense of good enoughness on the outside of ourselves, the longer this society, this kind of very toxic or driven by toxic masculinity society, this kind of Eurocentric way of living, or this Western world powered up by consumption is going to prosper, because we're going to continue look on the outside for our sense of safety, for our sense of settling. Wow, okay, I can sit back. I can sit back and relax because I'm good enough. I can walk away from this shopping center because I'm good enough. I can stop overeating, or I can stop harming myself if in any way. I can stop watching Netflix because I don't no longer need to escape difficult feelings, for example. I'm not saying that watching movies is a bad thing, but there is definitely this this content and quantity of stuff, of food, of money, of yeah, escapism, just escapism everywhere, for us to be able to feed that sense of kind of lacking, that sense of yeah, that sense of lacking. So where do we find our not, or where do we find our good enoughness? I think that there is a road where we can look at when the sense of not good enough comes up in our life. And we can sit alongside it. Maybe close the eyes and see, or ask ourselves, when did I feel like this before? Have I felt like this before? Have I felt not good enough before? And just seeing if that can transport you into another situation, into the source situation, and coming back or traveling back to that part of us that feels that had to give up their potential, their true nature, maybe needs something, or maybe just needs to be seen, or just needs to be heard. And just taking a moment to see where that not enoughness originates from. Yeah. And it's those ways of stopping, pausing, can feel difficult, can feel quite overwhelming maybe. So overwhelm is the enemy. We do not want to overwhelm the system. And if it feels overwhelming, to go back to those moments, to inquire, where is that sensation from the present moment taking me in the past? If that feels like too much, reaching out to a therapist, a somatic therapist, an inner child therapist, can be really supportive, to be able to take that journey anyway, but with someone who can act as a guide, who can just shed a little bit of light in that darkness, in that dark alleyway that can seem quite dangerous or scary. And having that person to just hold the space for you, because they have possibly identified those traumas, those dysfunctions in their own life, and they have healed, they have confronted their emotions, they have transformed those situations and were enriched by a sense of confidence, a sense of acceptance, a sense of compassion, a sense of love. And they can model that for us. They can just hold the space for us to experience that deep sense of compassion, that deep sense of allowing and the permission to tell our story just the way it was, and to go back and notice those parts of us that remain stuck, remain hidden, remain frozen, and possibly are reaching out for us, reaching out for a little bit of attention, of some space, of some expansion, so that they can breathe, so that they can come to the surface and tell their story, the story of that part. Because now, as opposed to when that situation was actually happening, now it is safe to do it. Because now the difference is we are adults. We can provide for ourselves, and we can give that compassion and that acceptance to ourselves. We can find that inner parent within ourselves, and we can nourish those wounds and nurture those wounds and tend to them ourselves now. There is nobody we rely on or we depend on fully, or at least our survival doesn't. So now it's safer to go back to those situations and to revisit. Yeah. Please get in touch with me. I'm not here to preach, even though it might sound like, but my main intention for this video is to share my experience, share my perspective on this, and how I have met those feelings of not enoughness. But I am so open, and honestly, I am coming from that space of real deep curiosity of how that experience is for you. If there is anything that has proven helpful for you, please share in the comments. I would just love to connect, and it makes me really excited to have a space to talk about this, to have a space to share in a true kind of authentic way about just this experience of being a human, and kind of wandering around looking for that inner home, or maybe being in the process of finding it, or having had found it and now doing some cleaning up because it's been neglected for a while, or just even an experience of not ever having had lost touch with that inner home. I'm just really curious about your experience, and yeah, and if you do get to connect with that part that is calling out for some attention, for some tenderness, to be heard, to be seen, yeah, if it feels safe for you, I would love to hear your experience. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for listening. Yeah, and I'm just really grateful to have this space to meet with my own sense of good enoughness, of self-worth, and of the doubt, and of that fragile, vulnerable part that still thinks, that still feels that it's not good enough, that still feels that it's not fully safe to reconnect with that self-expression and with those original source qualities that I brought here into this world. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.